Hello there, I'm Kale Hitsuga, the face of Kale Plays. I know, it's not as grandiose as you might have thought, and I'm white as hell. Now, it's a long story, something we'll get into later, but for now, we have a title to get to. D&December, a celebration started by a one Pro Jared, in honor of one of the greatest pen and paper role-playing games ever to grace our lives as gamers and nerds and geeks of all kinds. D&D. I've been playing D&D for years now, and, well, it's shaped my life. It has provided me a vast group of friends. Vast is a bit over-exaggerating. But it is no lie that it has given me a lot. And I wanted to take a moment to share with you, my viewers, all two of you, and maybe some others, the joys that D&D has brought me throughout the years. And I could think of no better way of doing that than telling you a quick story about my experience with D&D. I personally am a DM, and I play for very few other campaigns than the one that I DM, but I have a very consistent core group that I DM for, and they are wonderful. They are not quite as into the RP facet as I am, admittedly, but I love them, and this is just one of the many tales I could tell you, but it's probably one of the best, because it is still referenced to this day in my group. And that is the story of the Human Club, and how 1 HP can kill you. Now, this story goes way back, years ago, to probably the first really good campaign that I ran. I say really good, others say I've done good things in the past before, but to me, it was where I really solidified myself as DM, loving what I do as a DM. And my god, there's a lot of stories from it, but this probably takes the cake. So, let's get right into it. Now, just to illustrate the party a little bit, it was, at the time, consisting of a paladin, a fighter cavalry, who was a lance user on a mount. He's the central part of this story, and played by a good friend of mine. Let's just call him Jonathan. And the paladin, played by my good friend, let's just call him Harper. I'm not going to use their real names. I'm going to use the names that they used in game, because I only remember one of them, and that's unfortunate. Of course, you'll find out why I only remember one of those two in just a moment. But then there was also a few others in that campaign, but those are the two that really matter for this story. Now, the paladin, Harper, he was the leader of the party, the charismatic, noble fighter type. He was a paladin of freedom, which meant he was chaotic good, so he didn't exactly fit the standard archetype for paladin, but he still took the leader role. At his side, his right hand, no, his left hand. His right hand was probably the bard, a William Spearshaker. Yeah, he's a big William Shakespeare fan. He wanted to play the bard. But no, right now we're focusing on Jonathan and Harper. Now, Harper was an amazing fighter in and of himself. He could take hits, he could dish them out, he was great. Jonathan, however, Jonathan is a player that excels at breaking the game. He also excels at giving me no end of headaches because of it, because it makes balancing so very difficult. But still, I have fun. That being said, though, when probably the first major large enemy boss appears before them, The battle lasts all of 5 minutes. And I'm not talking in-game. No, I'm talking one round. One single round. Which is ridiculous. The boss had 63 health and a little bit of DR just to kind of tease it out a little bit longer. And they were level 3, if I recall right. Level 3. Against something that's 65 health, you think, oh, let's see, fighters at best have a 2d6 weapon that probably has a little bit of extra strength backing it, so +4, maximum damage 16. Maximum damage 16. Even with that, 4 times in a row, still going to take at least 2 rounds, right? And that's max damage. Jonathan, however, our charging lanceman, did not exactly believe that that needed to happen, and picked up his lance, was on his horse, saw the enemy about to attack his allies, and charged the damn thing, hitting it for 65 damage after the DR. At level 3. Now, I'm not going to go into the mechanics about how or why he is able to do this, because it's convoluted beyond me. Now I actually figured it out, but yeah. I'll leave you guessing. Gotta leave some mystery. But that's just insane. That is a large size, I think it was an aberration of some sort, like this giant monstery worm thing that was going to eat the party. And everyone else was clearly terrified of it because they had run from it when it was still in its lair. It like swooped out of the ground and like munched them. But then they got it out in the open into a place where it couldn't burrow quite as well. And that was when they could strike. And it had done some serious damage to the paladin. It had rushed in there and chomped him for about a third of his health, and he was reeling. This was before they had a good cleric to patch him up. But no, once he was vulnerable and easy to hit, boom, dead. Just like that. That is... There's a lot I had wrong with that character. Especially because later on he was going to get pounce. Luckily, the first group of real villains they fought weren't stupid. They teased out their abilities and started to analyze how best to fight them. And they slowly got a little better on them, pushing them to the point where they felt they were going to break every now and then. This enemy group had sent after them armed soldiers, a group of well-trained mercenaries, a giant turtle with a cannon on its back. Yeah, I have weird enemies sometimes. And yet, he one-shot any soldier he attacked, one-shot any of the mercenaries he attacked. And I think didn't one-shot the turtle if only because I said to myself, fudge it! It's got piercing resistance! I had to tease out the battle a little bit. It was a boss! He just couldn't be stopped. But it occurred to me, without his horse, and without his big weapon, he was vulnerable. Now, admittedly, it seems a little sleazy of me to be scheming against my players and trying to take away their abilities, but, you know, that's what the enemy would do. I had to play it like their enemy, because I do play their enemies. And if they're slowly collecting information and intelligence on these guys, they're probably going to figure out what I figured out. His weaknesses. So, they got him into a nice little confined area, a ruin they were investigating to unlock some secret of the ancient past, to find a weapon they could use to rule the world. Standard MacGuffin stuff. So, luring him deep in there, almost splitting the party because of the twofold battle they had to fight against enemies that their allies were distracting outside, and all the traps and soldiers that were inside. It was a tough drag-out, knockdown battle. on all fronts. And then they got to the back of it. Well, just before the back of it, like the final gate to where the bad guys were hiding, ready to make their grand escape when it was time. Well, technically, ready to beat them into submission and have them escape at the last minute. Another story. Gotta tease these, you know. I gotta have stuff for next year. But it was then that they came across the being that would be known in infamy. A large, giant-type creature that I dubbed the Gigas. Had this metal skull helmet on, and just monstrous hands, and its specialty was grabbing people. Grabbing people and using them as his weapon. Now, before we get into what exactly happened, even though I'm sure I foreshadowed it perfectly, early in the dungeon, when they were recovering a little bit, Jonathan had turned to William, the bard, and said, "I need healing," to which Jonathan was happy to reply, or not Jonathan, William was happy to reply, "Of course, Jonathan. Anything for you, my friend. You've been a remarkable boon to this entire endeavor." So he heals him. And he heals him again. And Jonathan looks at himself and says, "This should be fine. I've only got a few bruises and cuts on me, I should be fine." He had 1 HP missing. So, fast forward back to the battle, where they said, "It's alright, 1 HP. 1 HP never kills you." Jonathan charges the Gigas, hitting it for good damage, just very solid hit. But I had this Gigas have a little extra HD than normal. It was going to be a good experience boost for them. A real battle for the end for like the halfway point of an arc. And that's what it was, more or less. And the Gigas was no longer ready to simply take Jonathan's BS anymore. Reached out, grabbed him right by the waist, just picked him up off his horse, making so he could not run away, and wind up for another charge. Now, normally Jonathan doesn't need to charge twice, and he just has Harper the Paladin take care of it from there. But Harper the Paladin could not save him from the clutches of the Gigas. And Jonathan was unfortunately just too foolish to bring a light weapon. Which means all he could do was struggle in vain in the clutches of this giant creature. The giant then said to himself, "I can't hurt the guy who's stabbing me. Unless..." And he two-hands Jonathan, and just starts beating Harper over the head with him, just unrelentingly using Jonathan as a great club. Just beating the paladin upside the head, while Harper tries in vain to try and cut him loose, but just isn't enough, before Jonathan finally succumbs to his wounds and dies. The Gigas had 5 HP left. Jonathan died by 1. -11. And this was before they had their cleric, as I said. This was before they had the money or the resources for resurrection. And so, the charger died. Too late, as Harper cleaved the Gigas down, saving the rest of the party. And from then on, 2 major rules were established amongst my gaming party. 1, always bring a light weapon. And 2, 1 HP can kill you. 1 HP can kill you. Anyway, it's a fun story for me, and I hope it was entertaining for you as well. And I hope it is a worthy contribution to D&December. And I hope I told it well, because That's what I was going for. I pride myself as being a storyteller. And if this came across as amateurish, well then I hope it's at the very least an amateurish attempt that entertained. Anyway, I thank you very much for stopping in, and feel free to subscribe. I do a lot of gameplay on this channel of mine, and who knows, perhaps if people like this, I'll do more. Be sure to let me know down there. So, until next time, my friends, you have yourselves a wonderful evening. Later.